Well, just making a few adjustments to the old tripod here. It's HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's pregame. It's our preview show that we do from Jose's Bar and Grill. Arkansas Razorbacks, the 14th ranked Hogs, Hoop Hogs, hosting a Greensboro team that really took Arkansas to the wire a year ago. Both teams have some new faces, but a lot of returning players and key players from last year's game. And there was a share of adversity in that game. We're going to talk about that. Most of you know where I'm going with that. But welcome to the pregame show. As we come on now around 3 o'clock, we're still 4 hours from tip down in Fayetteville. Once again, my sponsor, Jose's Bar and Grill. All of my pregame shows will be here as long as game day's on a day when Jose's is open. And so here we are on back-to-back Fridays, actually. Arkansas opened the season with Monday, Friday games. Can't wait to watch some Hog hoops tomorrow. Well, it's tonight. This is a situation where Arkansas had Monday, Friday games to open the season last week. This week, it was the same formula, Monday, Friday. It's been all mid-major teams at home at Bud Walton Arena. So Eric Musselman has really done a good job, I think, of going up and down his lineup, giving guys opportunities to play. Things got tight against Old Dominion. I mentioned Greensboro giving Arkansas fits a year ago. Musselman said in his most recent post-game press conference that he felt like Arkansas would have to play its best game of the season. Arkansas won running away from the first two opponents, Alcorn State, followed by Gardner-Webb last week. Had its chances really against Old Dominion on Monday to do the same. 14-point leads in both halves. Arkansas just could never put that team away and build on those leads. Tonight, the game's tonight. It's all right. Some of the comments coming in confused me a little bit. I'm like, did I show up a day early? Anyway, it's been one of those days where beautiful weather. I think when I hit Northwest Arkansas, maybe there was a little bit of clouds and some mist or rain, but it was a great drive up here, and you're really looking forward to basketball because things change in a hurry. Arkansas has an upcoming stretch where you're going to be playing every day, 3 days consecutively. Next week during feast week, the holiday week, we know it's Thanksgiving holiday, but Arkansas Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday in the Bahamas. The team's going to play we've talked so much about it, been really anticipating the Battle for Atlantis event. You start with Stanford, you're going to get Michigan or Memphis next up. And then on the other side of the bracket, you hope you're in the championship part of it and playing for the event's title on Friday. But over there, you've got, teams that have been ranked, North Carolina, Villanova, Texas Tech, and Northern Iowa. But jumping ahead a little bit because Arkansas is finishing up this four-game homestand, wraps up tonight. So let's start talking a little bit get to some of the talking points that are going to matter. Once again, it's HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Thank you for joining me. I've got a pregame article out where I go through everything. I really break down the opponent, the Spartans, what the team looks like, what they've done so far this year, what players accomplished, and what the team was able to do against Arkansas last year. Trevor Brazile is a huge talking point here because this was the game a year ago, early December, when Brazile goes down with that season-ending knee injury that required surgery later in December. We didn't see him again until the exhibition season, basically. Pro Day in October, and then you had your two exhibition games. He played in both. Has really, in many ways, looked really good for Arkansas. Efficient scoring, hasn't tried to do too much offensively, kind of played his game. You see the bounce, you see the attention to detail at both ends. I think the one maybe knock so far, he's averaging just under 6 rebounds a game. Eric Musselman would like to see more from him, especially on the defensive glass. One of Arkansas' struggles to this point has been rebounding, keeping teams off the offensive glass. This is another good team in Greensboro, top 50 in the country. I think 15 offensive rebounds per game. And so that's been a problem area for Arkansas, and that's a team coming in that's going to get on the offensive glass. When you look at Brazile, he's one of he's obviously first-team All-SEC pick by both coaches and media. He's on that watch list for the Naismith Trophy National Player of the Year. But I think the other guys around him that are really, through 3 games, have kind of, I don't know if you can ever say everyone has cemented their roles. But I think guys like Tremont Mark, Devo Davis, Caliph Battle, and L. Ellis right now, along with Brazile, are probably your top 5. Those are the guys that, going into each game right now, you expect them to get the heavy workload, the bulk of the minutes, barring injury or foul problems. Those are the guys right now. With other guys around those top 5, still a bit of a mystery. I think Mekhi Mitchell in this last outing, combined with his work against Gardner-Webb at the double-double against ODU, the 6 of 7 shooting from the field, he's got 5 blocked shots in the last 2 games. Brazil's got 9 in the last 2, but Mitchell may be that guy that's getting closer to locking down a top rotation role. He's played off the bench throughout exhibition season, throughout the first 3 games. Don't know if he'll be back in the starting lineup or if he's just a guy that Musselman's okay with bringing off the bench because he's going to have a starter value, a starter kind of role, play those kind of minutes. That's what Devo Davis's career has been like up until this season. And who knows if he plays off the bench again, because he's been a heck of a 6th man when he's been in that role. But that's kind of been Caleb Battle's role, Mekhi Mitchell. So there's 6 names right there that I think have done the best work so far when we talk about what the Hogs have accomplished getting out to 3-0. When you go back, before we really jump into Greensboro, let's just kind of go back down memory lane just a few days ago, early in the week. I mentioned those 2 14-point leads. Arkansas, the struggles have been offensive rebounding, physicality, playing in the paint. Musselman talks about those things. They had a second half defensive collapse inside and out. That's something that has not been problematic through 2.5 games until the second half. And against Old Dominion, you gave up 8 of 13 from 3 in that second half, 61.5%. The first half, you held them to 3 of 11. You did your job. Arkansas has been really sound defending the 3 line. But here comes I'm going to jump back to Greensboro, a team that's prolific shooting from 3. 11 makes per game, nearly 30 attempts per game, and a 38% efficiency. Arkansas is over 40% efficiency. The Razorbacks have been outstanding from 3, and they got their own nice volume. That they don't get up as many as Greensboro has, but they're averaging 9 makes a game. So this could be a 3-point shootout. We got to keep our eyes on that. But then we go back to what happened against Old Dominion. You don't want to have a carryover of that second half against a 3-point shooting team like the Spartans. You want to be able to fine-tune some things. Eric Musselman had 4 days in between games. That was something that you could tell really got under his skin, was Arkansas's defensive lapse, especially on the perimeter. Because you did a good job in the first half, and you end up having an Old Dominion team that shot nearly 49% in that second half. But again, 61.5% from 3 on 8 of 13 there. So a lot of that was the 3-point shooting. Still, the work on the offensive glass by Old Dominion winning that battle, +1 in second chance points. Arkansas wants, against these good offensive rebounding teams like Greensboro, they want to impose their will, especially at home. And so you need more than a guy like Mekhi Mitchell, who had the double-double and 10 rebounds, 7 of those defensive rebounds. You need a Trevor Brazil to step up in that way. Before he got hurt last year in his first 8 games, he was a guy that was a little up and down on the glass. He'd have a really good game, and then he might, kind of taper off a little bit and not have as strong a game. So playing with physicality, he is a bit of a unicorn because of the way he can stretch the floor, knock down threes, put the ball on the deck because of his quickness, and then his long strides. He gets by one guy, he might just dunk on 1 or 2 more that are trying to protect at the rim. And so there are things he brings that a lot of guys don't. But the one thing you want is to see him give, the blue-collar stuff maybe a little more, because you love the block shots. 9 in the last 2 games, that's outstanding. Arkansas ranks in the top 10 in the NCAA in block shots per game, just over 8 per game. I think it ranked 7 as of yesterday. I didn't check it today. But this is a team that, when you hear Eric Musselman talk and then you look at some of the stats, this is why stats can lie. Because Arkansas is pretty sound. I mean, even in the efficiency with KenPom, they've dropped out of the top. They were hovering around 11th, 12th, 13th. They fell back. The last I checked, they were around 28th. That's how one bad performance in a small sample size can impact your numbers right now. But even when Arkansas's numbers were good the previous games, and even the first half against ODU, you still have this common theme from Musselman, because I think he sees what's coming down the road, especially when the competition gets even tougher. There are going to be some problem areas there if Arkansas doesn't get a little more physical in the paint area, on the glass. Turnovers is something that Arkansas really cleaned up in this last game. Really, the previous 2 games, Arkansas had 15 turnovers when you go back to Purdue. They had 15 turnovers in the season opener against Alcorn State. The last 2 games, they've combined for 14. 10 against Gardner-Webb, only 4 against ODU. So you've gotten better and better. On the other side of that, Arkansas didn't force a ton of turnovers the last 2 games, 10 each against Gardner-Webb and then ODU. So +6 in this last game. but there's not enough advantage there. Musman wants to see more steals. They only had 3 steals in this last game. I think they only had 4 the previous game. They were getting in the double digits in the exhibition season and against Alcorn State in terms of those live ball turnovers, especially if you're struggling to close out possessions with defensive rebounds. You want to get it in other ways. You've got to find other ways while you're working to improve in one area. You need to win those possessions back other ways, and getting live ball turnovers, getting steals helps you do that. So Arkansas a little deficient there. One of the biggest advantages for Arkansas against ODU, which could play big tonight, is that Arkansas shot 29 free throws against the Monarchs, committed very few fouls, only 5 free throw attempts. So plus 24. Arkansas's efficiency was not very good, 62%. On the flip, ODU was 4 or 5, 80%, just a small amount of attempts. So this is a game, when I look back last year to Greensboro, just taking that little part against ODU, because each game has its own character. But looking back last year, Greensboro didn't shoot a ton of free throws in that matchup. Arkansas did. That's where Arkansas won that game, is at the foul line. It was a huge difference, free throw attempts and makes. And Arkansas was not a good free throw shooting team last year, but they were excellent in that game, high 70s. And in a tight game when you trailed by 5 at halftime and you only won by 7, and really, I mean, Greensboro led nearly 30 minutes of a 40-minute game. So 3/4 of the game, they were in the lead, that team. So that's where it was won at the free throw line. Guess what? So far this year, small sample size, Greensboro's only getting 10 free throws per game. Just the attempts. Their percentage is good, but their attempts are low. Arkansas is one of the leaders in attempts in the NCAA. So there's a plus 22 advantage on average per game right now when you compare Arkansas to Greensboro. This could be another game if it's ugly and it's close and it's a grind, where the free throw line might be where Arkansas's got to find a way to be really good again efficiency-wise, because they weren't that against ODU. I think this should be a better free throw shooting team than it has been, but until they do it, that's a talking point, and the more often they don't do it, then the other talking point becomes more true, which is they're not as good at the free throw line as we thought they would be. So this is a game where that might matter. Now, last year's game, 65-58, Greensboro, I told you they were physical. They turned it into a grind game. Part of Arkansas's problem was losing Brazil early in that game. Nick Smith Jr. was kind of just getting back into the fold of things, and he had a big night, over 20 points. Kind of finished that. He had a great game at the free throw line in that one, but helped Arkansas finish strong and win it. But Arkansas had a lot of inexperience going up against a veteran, savvy Greensboro team that took the fight to Arkansas. This time, Arkansas's got a lot more experience, but then you've got that lack of physicality nature that is concerning Musman. So we got to see, with all the experience, how does this matchup really play out? Is Arkansas going to be able to match some of that brute stuff, wherever it comes from, and play a little tougher? You know, it's not just about getting space eaters around, getting pushed around in the paint. There's been a little bit of that. What I've noticed is when there's 50-50 balls on some of these long rebounds, or when someone's not securing it very well and someone's digging in, Arkansas's not being strong with the ball, or they're not getting to it first on 50-50 balls. So a lot of these offensive rebounds are just loose balls that the other team's beating Arkansas to, or out hustling Arkansas to, or just out fighting Arkansas to. So they need to be tougher in more ways than one when they're trying to defend. And then on the offensive end, Arkansas has been spectacular. Really, the 2-point field goal percentage has been really good. The 3-point percentage has been over 40%, over 50 in 2, over 40 in 3. And you can't ask for more than that. The offense is probably ahead of the defense right now. In fact, in Ken Palm's rankings, I mentioned the defense is hovering around 30. The offense has been around 20, got to 18 at one point. And I think it's around 20 right now. So that's very unusual to see any Eric Musman coach team, even in a small sample, to kind of be trending a little bit differently there. But again, that bad half, only 3 games into the season, is enough to really make things look askew, and Arkansas can get that back on track tonight with a solid offensive effort. You know, when we start looking at the matchups, I mentioned Brazil. I think this could be a game because this was a team that ended his season. You know, Eric Musman was asked, do you think he has circled this game in terms of Brazil? And personally, you know, looking at Greensboro as a revenge factor, and he said, you know, I really hope not. I just hope he plays this game. This could be a game where Arkansas needs more from Brazil, not only on the glass, maybe a little more offensive punch. I think I've just got this feeling that this might be Brazil's best game to date, as Arkansas then starts gravitating into these next series of games where everything changes and you're on a national stage back to back to back ESPN games. I mentioned the teams over there in the Bahamas for the battle for Atlantis, but I think Brazil might just give himself a send away gift to say, I'm not only back, I've not only shown you some stuff, but I've laid down my best game so far. Look out, I'm ready now for the next stage. We'll see. I don't want to jinx it. I don't know if that I can. I may be way off. He may not have that kind of a game, but you hope he does. I got a feeling that maybe he has a really good game one way or another. So there's one thing. Tremont Mark got into foul trouble in this last matchup. He was so good through exhibition season. He was so good in the first two games. Got two early fouls, sat most of the first half. Didn't have his best shooting night. I think that big backcourt, some of those big guards, gave Arkansas problems, including Mark. He got into foul trouble. He was a guy that late in the game, he did hit two free throws in the closing seconds to kind of ice the win. Free throw line's been a little shaky for him prior to that game. Only 7 points in that matchup. I look for Tremont Mark to have a bounce back game. Guy, you love to see L. Ellis putting things together. Back-to-back games in the backcourt at the lead guard spot where he's really starting to, I think, he looked really good early in exhibition season. Then Purdue in the first game against Alcorn, I thought he took a step back in the lead guard part. His offense, scoring and finding shots is not a problem. It's running a team, getting guys on time, on target, and playing with some pace. And there was just some troubled stuff there, some turnovers as part of that. But he's cleaned that up. I mean, you look at this last game, led Arkansas in scoring 17 points, 7-11 from the field. Outstanding. Two of that, that included one of two from three, but 8 points, a game high assist. That's a season high for Arkansas. Most of those came on 3-point shots, so he was setting guys up. Arkansas is a good 3-point shooting team. Get used to thinking that and saying it. I mean, I guess it's still early. I keep talking small sample sizes. They're going to continue to prove it. But everything I've seen going back to even the first practice that we got to go see, that 45-minute window when they went 5-on-5, they were knocking them down that day, and that was late September. So let's see if the trend can continue. But Ellis was setting guys up. You talk about the 8 assists, but he didn't have any turnovers. He had 3 rebounds, and still, I thought he did his job. There was, we saw Tremont Mark take Arkansas home in the late stages against Purdue, and then with some Ellis in there scoring the ball. And so in this game, we talked about Mark, kind of some of his struggles, not only with foul trouble, playing in the late with 4 fouls, had to come out in the fourth quarter because of his fourth, and then came back. But they trusted the ball with L. Ellis. Musselman went that route. They played middle game, 2-man game in the middle of the floor, and Ellis just kept getting downhill, getting to the basket and finishing. So beyond being a lead guard, beyond being able to get some fired it up and get some scoring, it's situational basketball where you've now seen a couple of guys help carry Arkansas home. I think Caleb Battle, another guy who's been outstanding, 21 points per game coming into ODU. He also was playing with foul trouble. 2 fouls in the first half, sacked quite a bit there. And it wasn't his best game, but he was fairly efficient shooting the ball. 13 points. He's going to get you double figures. And he was the one guy that when he went to the line was reliable, 5 of 6. So I think, just going through these names again, we've talked about Brazil. We've talked about Mekhi Mitchell and some of the stuff he's been doing. I've gone through Ellis, Mark, and now Battle. The one name I need to get to, because second leading scorer for Arkansas in this last game was Devontae Devo Davis, who's been kind of doing a little bit of everything other than scoring and being efficient. His efficiency numbers on the season aren't great still. But in this one game, he shot the ball better than 50% from the field, really helped carry Arkansas in that first half when Mark was on the bench and Battle was off the court. He, Ellis, and Mekhi Mitchell, the three of them were like a little three-headed monster, kind of carrying the water with other guys. Brazil didn't have a good first half. He had 2 early turnovers, and I thought, even though he was defending the rim, offensively he didn't get going until the second half, and I think he finished with 11 points in the game, but only 4 rebounds. He did again have 4 blocks. So when you had Mark Battle and Brazil, and Brazil struggling in that first half, you had Ellis, Mekhi Mitchell, and Devo Davis. Devo finishes with 16 points, 5 rebounds, a couple assists, a steal. He has 0 turnovers. Not only did he have 0 turnovers, he hasn't turned the ball over yet. So some of his shot selection can sometimes feel like a turnover. He's I'm not going to say that he's reverted or regressed as a 3-point shooter. It's too soon to say that. His percentages are low, and he's not taking the wisest shots at times from three. But he has not turned the ball over. So far, he's cleaned that up. He's doing so much. He gets on the glass. Typically, he's your best defender. The whole team stunk it up in the second half. Devo had some busted assignments there as well. But I think Devo Davis was huge. In a game against ODU, Arkansas took the lead for good at 7-5. And they built several double leads along the way, including 14 points in each half. But every time they did it, there was something would go wrong. Like they'd get to the free throw line, make one of two. Old Dominion would come down, knock down three, or get an old-fashioned three-point play. Arkansas back to the line, one of two. So this is another reason you want to be able to be good at the free throw line, because we think about end of games closing teams out. That's very important. But during games, just being good at the free throw line, being consistent there, you're playing with a double-digit lead. Even if you don't win by 20 or 25, you're probably going to win between 12 and 15, 18 points just by making your free throws consistently. What Arkansas is capable, they're capable of, because we've seen the percentages some of these transfers brought with them. And then we've seen, guys like Devo, who's going to be a better free throw shooter. I think Ellis will be a little bit better than he's shown. I think Mark will be. So far, they haven't been collectively. And so those are things you keep an eye on in a game like this. Getting to Greensboro now, what really gave Arkansas fits last year with those Langley twins, they're back. Senior guards, both of them 6'1". Not as much size as what we saw against Old Dominion, but these guys are tough, man. Keyshawn is the more of the scorer, all-league guard last year in the Southern Conference. A team, by the way, last year that ended up winning 20 games, 14-4 in their conference. But Keyshawn Langley, didn't have a huge scoring game against Arkansas last year, but he's coming off a 28, 26-point game against Vanderbilt, only a 4-point loss for the Spartans on Tuesday. Now, they fell behind by 12 at halftime. They were down 16 early in the first few minutes, second half, but fought their way back, made it a game. Were within one possession in the last 30 seconds. Got it to 3, then with 8 seconds left, they got it to 2, lost by 4. But Langley had a big game. Keyshawn, his twin brother, fraternal twin, by the way. They're not identical. They're both 6'1" guards, though. But Kobe Langley is more of the guy that's going to stuff the stat sheet. He'll give you some scoring, but he's going to give you rebounds. He's going to give you assists. He's a guy that kind of does a little bit of everything in there. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing this young man's first name correctly. Mikeal. It's either Michael or McKill, but I can't remember his last name. He's got 2 last names. I think it's Brown Jones, but he just had a 20-plus point game, 6'8" forward for North Carolina Greensboro. So he had a nice, 20-plus point game against Vanderbilt on the road. This is a guy last year that played against Arkansas off the bench. He's a starter now. Atwell is the guard. Donovan Atwell, he was a freshman last year, but another guard, and he was 4 of 6 from 3. He really gave Arkansas trouble last year. 12 points in that game. He's back. He had an off night against Vanderbilt, so you hope he doesn't catch fire and feel good tonight. But he was, I think he was 0 of 6 from 3 and only 1 of 8 overall, shooting only 2 points against Vandy. But he felt comfortable in Bud Walton last year, and you hope that's not the case this year. So they've got other guys as well. I think they had 2 or 3 other players that are on the team. That one of them's a starter, another forward that played against Arkansas last year. So they have multiple guys that have played against the Hogs. They go about 9 deep. They've got a couple of newcomers that factor in there. One player from last year who's only played 4 games and did miss the Arkansas game, but he's already been productive off their bench and in their rotation. So they go about 9 deep. It's a team that's averaging 82 points a game. We know Arkansas is averaging in the high 80s. So you think last year was a grind game, tempo low. Does that play out again? I don't know, because both of these teams, when you just look at their averages, look like they want to play with pace and maybe get in transition. That's another Arkansas problem area, though. Whether it's a grind game or not, Arkansas is going to have to find a way to do better in transition. Really got beat up there against ODU. It was 15-2 at halftime. Ended up being 21-9, so Arkansas closed it a little bit in the second half, but not nearly enough. This is an Arkansas team that should be good in transition, but what's been part of the problem? They're not forcing as many turnovers. They're not getting live ball turnovers. So that hurts your transition game. We saw that against Old Dominion. Old Dominion did a good job of defensive rebounds and even scored makes by Arkansas of getting down to the other end in transition. Arkansas really did a poor job of guys getting back. So you want your guys to not just run out on offense in transition. You want your guards to get back, identify what they're supposed to do, and get back in transition defense. Another area when you talk about defense, it's not just about half court. Fast break matters. So we'll see where things go with that. We've kind of gone through these players and some of the matchups. I don't like to talk about individual matchups. I mean, we know Tremont Mark and Devo Davis in some way, form, or fashion are going to be expected to clamp down on some of these backcourt guys. Devo on one or both Langleys at times. Tremont Mark, we don't know if he'll be on Brown Jones or which of those, because it's a smaller team. It's the smallest front line, but they get a lot done. They're very effective. Greensboro is going to be a tough out. I go back to it's a prolific three-point shooting team. They've scored well. What do they do, though? Do they try to dictate a slower pace because it worked last year? Or are they just going to roll the dice and say, we'll try to run with Arkansas on its home court? I'm interested to see that. All right, we're about 26 minutes in. I'm really enjoying going through the pregame here. I think Arkansas gets to 4-0 tonight. I mean, I might as well make a prediction. I won't give you a final score prediction, but I think Arkansas finds a way. And I'm not sure that this won't be Arkansas's best game so far in the regular season. I think it just might be. We're going to see. We'll see. I think Trevor Brazile could, and I think I still think he's the centerpiece of this team. That should be obvious, but I still think if he takes another step in what he's doing, I think other guys are gonna follow the leader. And I think Arkansas's been mostly good with certain trouble areas, and the second half kind of snowballed on them against Old Dominion. I think Eric Musselman will get their attention with 4 days to prepare for this game. We'll see. You never know what's going to happen in a game. It may be another deal like last year, and Arkansas's got to find a way to scratch out a win. But they've done that in exhibition. That's why you're glad you played a team like Purdue, because you've shown you can figure out a way to do it. Even against Old Dominion, you still had to close that game. You were up 14 with 5 minutes left and gave up an 8-0 run, and they were right back with 2-possession games. So you had to close that game out. Even though you hadn't trailed since 7-5, it could have gone even more south. That happened to Arkansas's team last year, by the way, a few times. So this was different. Arkansas found a way and ends up winning by 9. Fans don't like it, but that's what it takes sometimes. Talking about rotation, we're going to go through it again. Brazile, Devo Davis, Mark, Battle, L. Ellis. And I think Mekhi Mitchell right now, based on what he's done these last 2 games, not just the double-double, I thought he was really good against Gardner-Webb, and he really helps Arkansas at both ends. And if no one else is going to step up with physicality, and he's that one guy, and Muss needs that, then we're going to see these 20, he's been a guy that's averaged around 20 minutes a game, got 29 in this last game. So we'll see. But I think those are the names right now. Chandler Lawson has started every game when you go back to exhibition season and so far in the regular season, but he's not had a lot of clock. He did against Purdue. He was outstanding. Since then, the first 3 regular season games, he's gotten in foul trouble. Maybe there's a turnover. There's a lack of I'm not going to say effort, but effectiveness in some of what Musselman wants in the paint. And I think that also goes for Jalen Graham. Graham had an 8.8 rebound game. He didn't play in the exhibition season. That was out of the gates, I believe, against Alcorn State. And he really hasn't played a whole ton in the last 2 games where Arkansas had some problem areas. Gardner-Webb gave Arkansas a fight in the first half. Hogs pull away by halftime and just blow it out from there. Could have won that game by 30, led by as many as 26 in this last game. So, what does Graham need to do next to kind of solidify things? Mekhi start. If I said Mekhi during any of this, my apologies. I mean Mekhi. But anyway, we might see him start tonight, or we may see him. Lawson's been starting, but he's been off the floor pretty fast. And Mekhi comes in and starts doing work. So we'll see if that trend continues, or if Musselman just says, hey, Mekhi, you're back in the starting lineup now. You've earned it. Musselman had nothing but praise. And if you listen to Musselman, he didn't just talk about on-court. He talked about Mekhi having his best stretch at Arkansas with coaches, teammates. There's a lot of stuff that goes on to decisions on who a coach trusts. And a lot of that sometimes is off the floor, in practice, some of that stuff. If you paid attention to some of these pre-games and post-games, I bring that up when I talk about the front line. When I talk about that revolving door at the 5 spot, it's a little bit more than just what you see play out on the floor sometimes. I think there's more to it. So we'll see where this leads. I still think a guy like Jeremiah Davenport, this is why I asked Musselman in the postgame the other night. I brought his name up, even though he had 1 3. It was at the back end of that first 14-point lead. He hits a three. I think Mekhi Mitchell followed up with one of 2 free throws, and Arkansas led by 14. But he hasn't caught fire yet. He's had a 3, I think, in each game, maybe 2 of the 3 games. I don't know, maybe he's hit 1 in each game. But he hasn't caught fire like we know he can. And Musselman has all the confidence. He says this guy's a great shooter. We see it in practice all the time, and he will help change the dynamics even more for Arkansas once he gets in and helps Arkansas that way. He came in early against Old Dominion. He was subbing in early. He was one of the first guys off the bench. So don't sleep on Jeremiah Davenport, even though so far he's not a guy we talk about a lot when we talk about production and playing a ton of minutes and impact. Musselman not only likes him as a shooter, he says he's one of Arkansas's better rebounders off the wing, playing off the elbows and getting to rebounds. I think there's still some things with Jeremiah Davenport and a lot of guys, apparently, after that second half, that have some question marks overall defensively. But we'll see how much Jeremiah Davenport factors in tonight, if at all. He might be a guy that can help Arkansas in this game, maybe more than we think he has so far. Going back through, we've talked about all the fives and haven't spent as much time on Lawson and Graham. I don't think things are fully settled there. I think that may be something that Musselman just has to continue to, like a Rubik's Cube, kind of work that and see what's working. Right now, Mekhi Mitchell's working really well. So let's see if he's able to build on that. Because Musselman's looking for someone to go in there and do the dirty work and get in there and be not just a space eater, but an effective play finisher. Get that defensive rebound. You can have a great defensive possession. If you give up an offensive rebound or you fumble a 50-50 ball and you're not securing things, what did you really accomplish? So those things matter, and I think Musselman's still trying to figure that out with these guys. But I still really love the pieces on this team. I don't think there's anything more thrilling if you're an Arkansas fan after the last 2 years of being one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country and knowing that's an Achilles heel just about every game, to see what you've seen so far. They've got to continue to be good there. Not every night's going to be great. And they've got guys that can dribble drive in the mid-range, get all the way to the basket. They can get to the free throw line. They're one of the best teams at doing that. They've got to start making them, though. But either way, they've got so many ways they can beat you. That's why this offense is really good and maybe ahead of the defense right now. But I still got to think guys like Brazil, Devo Davis, Tremont Mark, Caleb Battle, who's shown toughness defensively already. Even a young man like Blocker, who got to play after missing a game due to illness, got to play in the first half of this last outing, can help Arkansas. He was on the court against Purdue to close out both halves in a tight game. And so there are individual pieces here if they can start to communicate better, work better together, and not have busted assignments, where Arkansas could be another top 10 defensive team. They've been hovering around there. They've had a little slip back after this last game in the second half. But I think they can get things corrected at least for a game, and then you build off of that. If Arkansas can get everything right tonight, maybe the Hogs aren't talking about another close call one way or the other against Greensboro, and they're celebrating a big victory heading off to the Bahamas. I'm keeping my eye on that because I think it's a possibility. I'm not going to predict it, but I have this feeling that Arkansas might play its best game of the year so far tonight. And what do you want to do? You want to get better as you go. You had a block of 4 games at home against mid-major teams. And we could say the competition is going to step up. ODU was pretty damn good, at least in that game. Greensboro was really good against Arkansas last year. Ended up being a good team in the Southern Conference. It could be another one of those games, and now you've played another quality game in a setting that makes you figure things out because you're not just blowing teams away. Yeah, you'd like to get that big lead, and maybe that happens and you can play everybody again because those opportunities may not be there the further along you go, especially in SEC play, because we know where Musselman's headed, top 7 or 8 guys. So either way it goes, though, I think it can help Arkansas, but I think it would be great if Arkansas could have its best game so far as a ramp up to what comes next, because after the Bahamas, you come home for Duke in the first ACC SEC Challenge. The Blue Devils have already played a tough schedule. They've already split with Arizona, now a top 10 team, and Michigan State, a team that's a little bit on the ropes, but started out ranked 4th, lost to James Madison. But still, Duke has played a couple of quality teams there, so they're going to be ready. You know that. When they come to Fayetteville, the Blue Devils will be prepared. Arkansas's got gold in front of it, man. A bunch of quad one win opportunities probably in the horizon here. You're going to have Furman, another one of those tough mid-majors, man. Knocked off a 4 seed in Virginia in the NCAA tournament last year. That's after Duke. Then you go to Oklahoma, go to Tulsa to the BOK Center to play Oklahoma in that neutral site game. And so by that time, you've really kind of run a gauntlet. I think Musselman counts Greensboro in this stretch. That would be 7 consecutive games against competition that you might think could knock you off if you're not doing your job. And that's why Musselman said we've got to play our best game so far this year to win that game. Now, I don't know if he really believes that, but I think he understands and believes that on any given night, if you're not even close to playing your best and you're somewhere near not doing what you should be doing, you can lose. That's a recipe for losing. So I like how he phrases things sometimes because I think he wants that message out there. There's more than one way to send a message. I think he does a pretty good job of identifying problem areas that maybe to the naked eye haven't been that big of a problem, but he sees it coming. Some of these things, there's a lot of stuff that he does because he understands what the challenges are, especially for a team. You know, Arkansas, when the polls came out on Monday, still 14th in the country. They didn't move up, but after this Old Dominion game, they've slipped a little bit in some of the analytics stuff. You look at ESPN's BPI, Arkansas dropped from 16th to 20th. You look at KenPom, they were 12th at one point, then 13th after Gardner-Webb. Then they fell to 15th. They've fallen, further in the teens after Old Dominion. So you just kind of keep an eye on some of this stuff. When you're wrapped up in rankings, we know that right now that stuff doesn't matter greatly. And you're going to have plenty of opportunities once net comes out because these next games, several of them are eventually going to end up being quad one opportunities. At least one against Duke, but I think at least probably 2 or 3 are eventually are going to be in that realm, if not more. And so you're wanting to fix right now with these 4 home games, things that you know are areas that might bite you as the games get even tougher. So I think this is a game tonight we really look as a barometer. Don't worry so much about the metrics right now, but they've telling us a little bit of something. We know Arkansas had slippage on defense, at least for a half, and in a small sample size, that was enough to knock them back, in some of these analytics. So those are things to talk about. All right, let's move on. I'm going to move on to some stuff. Big set of high school games going on in Central Arkansas on Saturday. Several guys that have Arkansas offers are being looked at by Arkansas will be playing in Central Arkansas. And once I get back to Little Rock late tonight, probably 3 in the mornings when I usually get back after a Fayetteville game covering the Hogs, I'll be on site and catching some of these guys, getting my first regular season look at some guys. Just going down the list, Deshaun Andrews, and then Jacob Lanier, the 2 2026 guards, both 6'6", both uber talented, multiple services. When you, depending upon who you look at, have each guy in their top 30 somewhere. I think ESPN right now has Andrews at the 25th best player in the country. He's at Little Rock Christian Academy, Jacob Lanier at Maumelle. I've seen these guys a lot. I've seen them in recent practices. This will be my first look at them in a regular season game this year. So this will be, something I'm going to be obviously talking more about because Arkansas just had the 2 signees for 2024. High school recruiting's probably done for that class. Now you're talking portal in the spring. We're a long way away. So these younger players matter. There's 25 guys. The class of 25, Terrion Burgess, just a couple of nights ago, I tweeted this out. 35, I X'd it out, formerly Twitter. 30 plus points, 10 rebounds, just stuff the stat sheet. Benton knocks off Cersei. Pretty convincing win, but the Panthers have got more firepower around Terrion this year. But Terrion Burgess, 6'9" combo forward. They're in Saline County at Benton, Central Arkansas. Already off to a great start with that monster double-double. But he's a guy that's going to be at the Duke game. He plans to be there. He's been to a lot of Arkansas games, including football. He'll be visiting, as will Jacob Lanier, who I just mentioned with Maumelle, that gifted combo guard. I mean, he can play the 1, 2, or 3. He's got a sweet stroke from 3. He's got nice craft with the ball handling. And then when he breaks down that first line of defense, if the help comes, he's reading that situation. His floor IQ is off the charts. As soon as that move is made, and a guy cannot recover because he's making the next pass, setting it up easy for someone. If they don't come, he's going to dunk it or finish with a nice, because he's got a nice touch. He can pull up mid-range. I mean, Jacob Lanier's got to keep an eye on. He and J.J. Andrews both, to me, could both end up being 5 stars out of that 2026 class. We know in 2022 it's Nick Smith Jr. and Khalil Ware. And both of these guys, Arkansas is hot and heavy on them already. Had them on campus already. Arkansas loves both of them. So I'm going to get to see those guys. Let's shift over to Pro Hogs real quick. We're at 40 minutes. I'm going to try to keep it no more than 45. Last night, Isaiah Joe set another standard in Oklahoma City in the Thunder organization that's had guys like Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Chris Paul for a season. They've had a lot of Hall of Fame guys on that in that organization. But Isaiah Joe was 7 of 7 from 3 last night. It tied his career high for makes in a game, 7. He's done it 4 times now, 4 or 5, but he didn't miss. And that's a standard now, the new standard at Oklahoma City Thunder. The most makes from 3 in a game without a miss. He did miss a free throw. He finishes with 23 points, 7 of 7 from 3. That's all the field goals he took, 2 of 3 at the line. Had he made his his middle free throw out of the 3 after getting fouled on a 3, he would have had a 150% true shooting percentage. That would have been like, I think only one other player's ever done that. From stuff I read, I haven't been able to go back and verify those metrics, but that's one of the talking points. But they get a big win, Oklahoma City, out at Golden State. It was something very interesting. Steph Curry has not played in the last couple of games. We know Moses Moody, who, by the way, had a nice game, 12 points, 4 rebounds, really did some good work in that game. He's one of the better defenders right now in year 3 in the NBA. He really is so far. We always have to say small sample size in November. But through 12, 13 games, Moses Moody's been outstanding defensively and scoring efficiently. But going back to Isaiah Joe, Steph Curry's on the bench. At one point, Joe was at 5 of 5 from 3. You're now midway through the 4th quarter, and there was a possession where Oklahoma City, one of the Thunder passes to Isaiah on the right wing, or out high on the right side, not on the wing, but out high, but on the right side of the court. And you can see Steph Curry on the bench. At the end of the bench, he was easily identifiable who it was. And as soon as the pass went to Isaiah Joe, because remember, at this point, he's 5 of 5. As soon as he caught the pass, there was a defender closing out on him. But as soon as the catch came, Steph Curry raises his hands up like this. Isaiah ball fakes an NBA All-Star, Andrew Wiggins, a veteran, and a very athletic, one of the better defenders. He's noted for his defense. Flies by, Zay does a left side step and then a back step, a drop step into a 25-foot three-pointer. And it was just a thing of beauty, and Steph couldn't watch it. He covered his face up and he didn't take his hands away. He had to hear the announcer say, call out the name on a made 3 on his home court. So we'll see if Steph's available on Saturday. Tomorrow, these teams play again in Golden State. It's kind of like a baseball series on the road. You travel and play 3 games, they're going to play 2 in San Francisco. So we'll see if Steph dresses up, if there's any motivation to get back out there to go at it. You'd never bet against Steph Curry in any matchup. He's the greatest three-point shooter of all time. But for Isaiah Joe to go onto that court and to do what he did was a big deal. That's a big deal. Now, he's shooting 47% from 3 on the season. That ranks 11th in the NBA, so off to a great start for Isaiah Joe. He's tied for 8th in charges drawn, 3. It's harder to get charges now. They've changed the rule, so you're not probably going to see as many for guys. But so far, so good for Isaiah Joe there. And he and Patrick Beverley right now are 29th in the NBA in net rating. So when you take their offensive rating, their defensive rating, and get the net, they're both over 10.1 on the plus side of net rating, and they're tied for 29th. Bobby Portis is 37th in that at 8.9. Moses Moody, I talked about his defense. Prior to this last game, he was second among all NBA guards in three-point defensive field goal percentage. Right around 35% is what he's holding other players that he guards. That's the shooting percentage. But also after the game, he's still top 10, even though Golden State had its way scoring. Moses Moody's ranked 8th in defensive efficiency, overall defensive rating in the NBA. So that's a big deal. Daniel Gafford, 5th in blocks, 2.2 blocks per game. He's, I think, 3rd in effective field goal percentage, somewhere in the high 70s. He's 5th in true shooting percentage in the mid-70s. And his actual field goal percentage would lead the NBA, almost 78%. That's a career high he's tracking so far. Would lead if the field goal attempts were enough. He's averaging 7.5, 8 points a game, so he needs a few more field FGAs for that to count, and then he'd be leading the NBA in that. Bobby Portis, I mentioned him. He's 6th right now in the NBA in offensive rating. So his offense has been really good when you look at combine a lot of different things. So you got a lot of Hogs. I mentioned Patrick Beverly. He's 5th in defensive rating. So he and Moses Moody, 2 Arkansas guards, are in the top 10 in the NBA right now. Early. These numbers will change. It's very early, but look, we're not 2 or 3 games in. We're 12, 13, 14 games for some teams. That represents, roughly 1/7 of the season. It's a small sample size, but it's enough games to see some trends. And then you just wonder how guys are able to carry that on. All right, 45 minutes in, we've gone through Arkansas, North Carolina, Greensboro preview. We've kind of talked about some of the players that matter on both sides. We've talked about some of the numbers that matter. We look back at Old Dominion a little bit. We've talked a little bit of recruiting. Going to be a lot more names for that Duke game Arkansas is going to have in there. We'll get into that when we're allowed to, and that's green-lighted. But I've given you 2, Jacob Lanier and Terrion Burgess coming in for that. And we've talked Pro Hogs. I probably left somebody out. Anthony Black's been starting. Let's finish with that and Nick Smith Jr. Anthony Black's been starting. He's had 3 or 4 starts so far. His defense, we talking about defense, this guy has been outstanding, matching up with some of the best players in the NBA. I mean, guys are going to be Hall of Famers. He's had his way on some possessions against some of those guys. And guys are struggling to score on him. Some big names. I mean, the last game it was Zach LaVine, and LaVine had a hot finish to that game, but AB put the clamps on him in the first half. There's been other guys he's really looked good defensively against. He's an opportunistic scorer. They're playing a lot of off the ball with him and send him to a corner. Then maybe he cuts at the dunker spot and gets, he gets a bucket, running that baseline and getting a pass. But so not as much on the ball, although there are stretches where he's played on the ball as a primary handler, and he's a guy that I think is going to end up being an excellent NBA player. Nick Smith Jr. is in a different situation in Charlotte. They're dreadful, and they've got this plan where their second unit are guys that are two-way players that will not be NBA players. They're not very good. They finally gave Nick some meaningful run for the first time a couple of nights ago against a Miami team, the defending Eastern Conference champion. Took it to the wire. This was a great game. But Nick Smith Jr. played the final 10 minutes of that game in a back-and-forth game and more than held his own. Had some really good defensive plays. That's where he's a work in progress. That's what he's working on, his defense. But he showed attention to detail and real care at that end of the floor and made some good plays defensively. But he hit a three and there was a strong closeout coming that cut a 7-point lead down to 4, I think. So he's, he hit a 3. He did some other good stuff, a couple of rebounds in that stretch. But ended up having a good game. I think, when you look at him, he's played 28 total minutes in 4 games. That was the first game where any of them were meaningful. But his numbers are good. 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, only 1 turnover in those 28 minutes, 50% from 3. So he's not been I think defense is that area that the better he gets there, the more he helps himself play. But he's no worse than some of the guys that are trotting on the floor. So hopefully Charlotte changes tact with Nick Smith Jr. They've had some injury problems. I think he should be in the second unit, even if they're at full strength. We'll see what happens there. Jordan Walsh off to a great start in the G League. Ricky Council's had some strong games. I've been putting those stats out. If you follow me on Twitter, at ARHoopscoop, X, formerly Twitter. All right, I said I was closing it up at 45, and I had to get back into the Pro Hogs. 48 minutes in, I'm going to sign off now. I will have a post game tonight from Bud Walton Arena. I want to thank my sponsor. I'm live broadcasting from Jose's Bar and Grill in Tawnytown. Thanks to Jose's Bar and Grill. Doug Allen, the owner, a good friend of mine for many years. Signing off, HogvilleNET YouTube Live. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you in the post game. I'm not going to promise 30 minutes. These press conferences are running long. 45 minutes to an hour after the game. I know it's Friday night. I hope you'll join me to talk Hogs, Greensboro, and hopefully your Arkansas Razorbacks are 4-0, ready to shove off to the Bahamas. Until tonight, see you then.